to another edition of Inside Great Lakes Sailing. My name is Greg Norman, your host. Well, we're dressed a little bit casually. We've been working on the boat this morning. Obviously, splash-ins coming up in another week. Just wanted to say a quick shout-out to Rick at Sail Cove over there in the Clinton River for allowing us to move our splash-in date from Monday to a week from Monday. Just so much going on in the schedule, so we really appreciate that. This week's episode, we're going to go one design shopping. If you have an interest in that kind of racing, there's no lack of opportunity. We're going to check in first with David Reed, who's the editor of Sail World magazine, and they're going to find this to be a really cool conversation. Dave has been around, lives in Newport, and Dave is going to be in town for the upcoming Hallie Hansen Bayview One Design race coming up May 31st, June 1st and 2nd. And on that same conversation is one of Dave's counterparts from Sailing World magazine, the promotion director, Sarah Renz. We get a chance to talk to her from Chicago, and both avid sailors, and we're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming event. We get a little sidetracked talking about Hallie Hansen, but I think that'll be also interesting. I think you'll find it to be an enjoyable conversation. We're also going to check in with another One Design event going on in Crescent Sail Yacht Club, June 15th and 16th. We're going to spend some time talking with Rob Wood, the current Vice Commodore, who oversees kind of the racing program in the summer as Vice Commodore. And we're also going to talk to Chairman Uli, and I want to make sure I say this right, Gus Weiser, who is going to be the chairman of the race. And Uli's a big-time F-18 racer and one of the best in the Great Lakes. So we'll get a chance to talk to them about their event. A little prejudice since I'm a member there, but we're going to talk to them anyway. Hopefully they'll enjoy the idea. And it's there's about 60 boats. They're looking for between 80 and 100. So you want to certainly get signed up. I think it'll be a great day at Crescent, as they always put a great show on when they participate in racing. We're also going to check in with Wally Cross. Wally and I are back on the heart of Bayview talking about boat bottoms. Again, we've had a couple of Zoom interviews. We've talked about being out there, but we've been a little busy. Wally's going to show you some interesting boat bottoms before they go in the water, and I think you're going to be surprised at some of the information that Wally brings to us. So all that going on this week. Next week, Boat in the Water, we'll hopefully have some fun with that. And that being the case, up next, one of the most delightful interviews we've had in a while with David Reed and Sarah Renz. So we'll be back in a second. Welcome back to Inside Great Lakes Sailing. We are really fortunate today to have a treat. We have David Reed, the editor of Sailing World magazine, and Sarah Renz, who is the director of marketing and special promotions for the magazine. We're going to talk a little bit about the great Hallie Hansen Sailing World Sailing Regatta coming to Bayview Yacht Club here on May 31st through June 2nd in Detroit, and a bit of a hiatus the last 12 years, and coming back to kind of put together a rather unique event, and I want to talk about that. So I guess I'll start with you guys. Maybe you guys can make a comment about how cool the race is and having a major sponsor.
Well, why don't you take this one, Sarah? You're the one that started this ball rolling back downhill to Detroit.
Yeah, well, freshwater. I'm a big fan of freshwater, being from Chicago. But I was fortunate to join Dave Reed, who's been working with Sailing World for longer than I'd like to say, and running the regatta series. So I sort of inherited a beast, and it's been amazing kind of going down this agenda of inclusivity and kind of making sure we are empowering junior teams to come and sail at minimal to no cost, and trying to promote women and mixed plus. And we even did a handicapable race over in San Diego. So we had the opportunity to add another stop, and our sponsor, who happens to have some ties to Crescent and Bayview, was really hopeful that we would come to Detroit again. And speaking with the team there and some old friends, here we are, and we will be there in 7 weeks, I believe. So we're super stoked. Yeah.
David, talk briefly about it's sort of a progressive event. You're in St. Petersburg, Annapolis, Detroit, Chicago, Marblehead, and then you're going to end up in the Caribbean running boats down there. Obviously, if you win your regatta in Detroit or any other place, you don't have to worry about trying to figure out getting your Cal 25 all the way down to the Caribbean. But talk about the sort of the championship and the progression of how the race works.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think that, that was primarily driven by our sponsor with Sunsail, who's been with us for a long time. And in the early days of what used to be called the New Regatta, sort of we needed this carrot at the end of the series to kind of bring people back together for this overall championship. So Sunsail, I mean, their interest is to obviously show racing sailors who, we spend all of our time at regattas and training and not vacationing, but to show racing sailors what a sailing vacation is like down at the BVI's, and it is absolutely wonderful. So the first time we did it was down in they had a place called Club Colonna in Antigua, which was one of these resorts that had dinghies and catamaran beach cats and stuff, and we staged off that, and that was pretty wild. And then eventually they said, well, let's do it in big boats, and so yeah, we basically select a winner at each event and they get a free bareboat. They're all one design-ish. They're all basically the same bareboat from the BVI fleet in Tortola. When we, race them from island to island and entertain them every night and see what these guys can do to make a bareboat go fast. And it's funny. They'll go down and some people try to tune the rig, but these giant turnbuckles don't turn, so they'll stop that. They'll wipe the bottom. They'll strip the dodgers. They'll do everything they can to make the boat fast. And then usually within, a day or two, they realize like, I guess I'm here to kind of not race or race, but have fun. So it is a great time. And it's a good intimate group that goes around the islands together for 7 days. And it is absolutely unique event.
You mentioned entertainment, Sarah. The interesting part is that even in your press releases, you really publicize the party aspect. Now, listen, we understand the kind of parties that they have on, the Chicago to Mac or the, Port Huron to Mac race, or for that matter, any other race, certainly races like that in Newport. Entertainment really is a big part of this. Is it not, Sarah?
Yeah, it's about building the community. So one thing we do have the power to do in all of the markets that we go to is just try to bring the clubs together, right? And we know that the future of sailing is with kids. And so we try to make these family friendly, like, Dave is Mr. Fun, right? So we've got pickleball going on. We have balance boards going on, like just all these different types of engagements. So once you come off the water, so you don't have to leave, go get changed and pretty and come back, bring your salty butt onto the grass and we'll hang out, listen to some music and really connect with people we do know, old friends, and meet people that are new to us.
The one aspect of this race, certainly being a regatta and being a one design, obviously Bayview's had the BOD for a long time, but this kind of changes a little bit of that. On Lake St. Clair, Crescent's having their own one design. There's sort of a resurgence in one design racing. And I'm wondering, David, if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, it might be worthwhile. Again, it's like go back to the early days. Just a quick history on the regatta series itself. When it started in the late 80s. That's when a lot of the basically around the country, people were sailing big one design 30-footers, the J35s, the Shock 35s, all these kind of, big beasts of boats. And that was the original conception. Well, let's get all these big boat classes together and race in sort of one big giant event and throw huge parties and get everybody together. And remember back in those days when the 35-footer, there's like 8-10 people on the boat. So, for every boat, the party just got incrementally bigger. And that was quite amazing. And so as the event grew to, I think at most we had 10 events from Texas to even we went across the border into Toronto. And there was certainly one year where as a young lad straight out of college, that was, part of my early, I did every single event on this giant road tour. It was incredible. And as I mentioned the other day in a story we just put up, I mean, by the time we got to Bayview, we were pretty much about halfway through the season, and I had never seen as a youngin' out of college the intensity and the nuttiness of a sailing party anything like Bayview. Again, it was the enthusiasm for the short season or just whatever it is that they do in Detroit. The parties were just off the hook, and probably that was driven by their legendary bartender, your friend Jerome, who's I guess now passed away, and he was probably feeding the beast before we even opened the gates of the party, but that's just sort of like everyone loves to get together. But in looking at the entry list to go to your question, it's just amazing to me to see the J35s and the Shock 35s and or not Shock, the Santana 35s, right? All these kind of old legend big boat one design classes that were there. We were, they're 20 years ago, and here they are still going at it. And so we've got this amazing mix of old school one designs and the new ones like the Mildred 15s and the J70s that everybody knows about. So this event it certainly bridges the gap across the years, and all the events so far this year, even St. Pete and Indianapolis next week, that we're finding these old one design classes like the Windmills, the Wayfarers, and Annapolis. We have Albacores doing their North American Championship. So yeah, I see these classic one design classes are kind of having a nice resurgence which is great to see.
You're wearing a J24 jacket. You talk about an old boat that it's had sort of a bit of a resurgence in the last couple of years. It was the fleet. If you go back 15 years, everybody was on a J24. It's obviously, slid a little bit in the world because there's other boats that have come along, the Melgus and obviously the J70s are certainly. But you think of a cost of a new J24 versus the cost of a new J70. Cost is a great part of that. So you're in Chicago, so you're kind of the king of the freshwater, and David, you're in Newport,
Right.
in the saltwater world. So do you find that anybody has those conversations if some of those are raced in saltwater and freshwater? And I ask that because the very first time they were in Sail GP was in Chicago at a press conference where it's not really a press conference because they ask the questions. You sit there during the press conference and don't get a chance to ask. And we asked a couple of them if they thought about the difference between saltwater and freshwater, and they were astounded that nobody did ask that question before. So maybe talk a little bit about that, Sarah.
Well, I just think it's the difference on the shore. You don't have as much time to rinse everything off, I don't think there's the waves are definitely different. You're talking about one design and you're talking about and Bayview and Detroit. Like, we're both known for having this huge race up to Mackinac. So I think from a race standpoint, our freshwater and these lakes have some amazing weather patterns that come through that make it very different. Whereas, in St. Pete and Annapolis, those weather patterns are more drawn out, right? They don't happen so quickly. So I think that for me is the biggest difference on the location that we're racing in. And so we have rolled in a 2-day distance race because of, one design is awesome. But we also see a lot of people that have moved, especially in those 2 distance races, that have moved into cruising and developed a cruising division. So we've kind of expanded that, and that's attracted, I don't know, what do we have? 50 boats in St. Pete, and we have a bunch coming in Annapolis, and hopefully even more from all the areas in the Detroit area in Port. They can come for the party, stay Saturday night, and then go race Sunday and then go home. So.
David, I'm a Crescent guy, so we're up the lake a little bit. Obviously, it's going to be done at Bayview. The distance race will certainly be in the lake, but there's some river racing in front of Bayview, and there's always that discussion whether or not Crescent has maybe the best look coming out the lake. Bayview has a different discussion, so there's always that long-term discussion at the bar. Having those different courses certainly is a challenging kind of process. With Mark Set Bot now, that makes, I think, a little bit easier from a racing standpoint. But the question I want to ask, how important is it having a national sponsor like Helly Hansen?
It goes back to these origins, the whole thing, that the title sponsor, international title sponsor is huge. And that's sort of what has always elevated the regatta series kind of beyond just your normal, 2-day weekend regatta that we all, sail our kind of home regattas. And I think, when it goes back to the originals, some of the major title sponsors that we had, IBM, GMC, we had Sperry Topsider for a good almost 8 years. And so they, bringing that national cachet certainly helps get the more mainstream media attention, but it also helps elevate everything that Sarah does, kind of behind the scenes with the party, the organization, being able to hire, good professional race management to make sure that, ultimately, the purpose number one is to give people great racing on the water, and to give them a great party. And once you complete the package, thing just sells itself. And I think for somebody like Helly Hansen to have a presence and a footprint in all of these premier yacht clubs that we go to in St. Pete and Chicago and Bayview and Marblehead, that the opportunity for them to get in front of the right people and sell the gear straight to them is a win-win for everybody.
Definitely empowers us.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely empowers us to have this type of caliber of event without charging. I manage the budget, and our entry fees would be triple. So I know there's some scuttlebutt about, having a name, a title name over an event, but we're very thankful. And as sailors, I'm very thankful so that they keep my racing costs down. So that's what I love about it.
And
yeah, I think most people, even those of us who play the sport a lot, sometimes don't appreciate all the effort that goes on behind the scenes until you actually have to run an event yourself. And I think that was that was a little bit of sort of the genesis of the Bayview One design. The bod was like, hey, well, this we can do this ourselves, and I think that maybe they realized like it's kind of nice when somebody else does all the work for you. You can just show up and race and kind of take away a lot of the stress off the the flag officers, the volunteers, and the club to just take a little bit of that work away and let the party come and just join it.
Right after we're done talking with you on the show is going to be a couple of guys from Crescent who are putting their one design together. And part of that conversation I know will be, wow, we've run races before and we've been around a long time, but it's a little different animal when as you grow it a little bit. And there's one thing to run a Monday night beer league race, and it's a whole different discussion running that process. Oh, I certainly get it. David, I'm just curious as a regional question. I know from doing this show, and again, I'm a non-racer. I've come to racing, and we've had an opportunity to meet just about everybody because of it. Does the rest of the, again, East Coast probably biased, but do they realize the quality of racers that are in the Great Lakes?
Oh, definitely. It sort of goes back to your weather and sort of venue thing where I guess that we, especially here in Newport, we go left out of the harbor and into a giant open ocean. So we've got waves, but the wind is consistent and it's pretty straightforward sailing. Once you get kind of used to conditions, but for sure the Great Lakes in the inland sailors are so much better with sniffing out wind shifts and just being able to do with oddball curves that us on the open ocean are can't deal with. We just freak out, melt down, and cry and go home. But so now the Great Lakes sailors are by far the smarter, better sailors, I think. When it comes to tactics and race course management.
Let's write that down. Can you quote that?
Although we produce millions of or a lot of champions, and we got our guys here, but I think that plenty of good sailors come out of the lakes.
Well, there's a little community up, a little sailing and skiing community called Harbor Springs. You guys, I'm sure, are very aware of where it is. You got a regatta. We started looking at all the people from Harbor that have been a part of the America's Cup. In fact, there was a guy that was a part of it. It was a ski coach against us for years, and Chris Shepler. And I didn't even know Chris Shepler had sailed with the Cokes during the America's Cup. And it turns out, found out he was a grinder. A town of about 2,600 had produced 6 America's Cup participants, either captains or just participants. That's a pretty staggering number when you got a town of 2,700. So it changes the landscape. You have over 100 entries. So my question, Sarah, to you is going to be, in a year where you've got obviously the America's Cup and the Olympics, does that sort of focus help a little bit, draw more folks?
Actually, we've seen, our numbers have been consistently stronger. Actually, climbing since COVID. So we've had 420 sailors come out for our first 2 events. So we're running the largest regattas in each of these markets that we go to. So I think that's one of our hopes, right, is to bring the national spotlight back to Detroit and give some exposure to all the clubs in the area. So I think that it's just going to keep climbing, hopefully.
Both of you are sailors. I'm just curious if you're racing, what it would be, what design, what one design do you find the most interesting? And I understand this is a very subjective asked question, but if you were going to sail, what would you be sailing on if you were in Detroit, or hope to be sailing on?
In Detroit, wow.
Good question. I love this.
So if I had to look at I'd have to go look at the entry list, but a long time ago, again, in my early days, I went and sailed with the Cal 25s, and I thought that was kind of just a hoot. Great grassroots people, and that's what the sport, we all rely on. But if I was to ship a boat up to Bayview, I'd probably ship one that I just raced down in St. Martin, these 24-foot trimarans that were it was the best week of sailing I've had in a long time. And so if I could ship one of those up there in Detroit and have a one design class, that's what I would bring.
Okay. So how about you?
That's a hard one.
She's got a J70, so she'd have to bring it.
Yeah, right. I have a J70, so and it's the mixed plus nationals, so I would probably have to support that, but I don't know. There's so many great names that we get to race against in Detroit, so I don't know. The Melges 24 has some amazing guys. I'd love to sail a Santana 35. I've never been on board. So, whoever would pick me up as crew, I'd be in. Let's go.
we're embarking this summer on there's three of us are all turned 70 about the same time. And we're embarking on a 4-race, I don't want to call it documentary because that's way giving it way too much credit, but we're going to be on 4 different boats in 4 races, including the 100th Mills race with my downwind submarine, my O'Day. We're going to be on a 52 for the Queen's Cup. We're going to end up on a J35 for the Bayfield race. And I think I'm going to be on a 52 for the Mackinac Port Huron and Mackinac 100th race. And it'll be interesting to see these changes. But when I see these guys put their money into their Cal 25s, and you see the pictures and you see these older boats that you can buy for $2,000, they put more money into the Cal 25 than you might have paid for your J70.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a passion of what they're attempting to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do miss the GL70s though. Those were fun boats to race around. On a little Far 40, you're like, oh, this is a big boat. So it'd be fun to see those come back too.
Yeah.
So,
I think the one design, I mean, this is where we realize that it's still only April, you know, and I imagine out in the Great Lakes, like we're kind of a little slow motion getting boats going and kind of signing up. But I think that the one design classes seem impressive so far. And to me, I'm excited to see how the 2-day distance race group grows to lead into your 100th Baby Mac race. To me, like from what I see in that 300 plus entry list is just incredible. And people say, oh, the sport is dying. You just got to look at that. That I think that that's a great barometer of what people want to do, what they're willing to do, and put into it to go do a cool race like that. And so hopefully, most of those people will show up and give 2 days of practice and get all their boat handling sorted before they go for the big one.
And their gear, right? They can gear up.
Yep.
One of the things you guys are going to have at the after parties is the Hallie Henson store. You got to tell me what that is.
Well, there's a local connection here. Might work.
Yeah, there is a local connection, but as you know, it's really hard to find good sailing gear and to try it on and see what fits and what doesn't fit. You know, I've got different sizes and shapes in my family. So one thing that Hallie does is they bring this entire store to each of our events. It is in partnership with Team One Newport, and Martha is an animal. Like, I don't know how she does it, but so they bring us everything from, I mean, they'll even bring safety gear and other items, but things you'll need for offshore sailing and things you might just need for some dinghy sailing. And so there's some branded stuff and some lifestyle gear, but really it's just making sure you've got the right gear so you're safe out there.
I'll do my one plug. I got to do this for you.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you got to work for it. Yeah,
I got to do this, and I say this because
nice.
A bunch of us. I work as a ski race coach in the wintertime, and because we get termed out of the U.S. program, we got hired by the Norwegians, and who are all Hallie Hansen supporters, and we picked up Hallie Hansen's winter ski clothing. Our national program is from the Norwegians. We coach all the Norwegians that happen to be over here for the NORAM series. And I have never worn better equipment in my life. It's just amazing how warm it is, and it fits. And for a big fat ball guy like myself, you want something that isn't tight. So I got nothing to say bad about Hallie Hansen. We got a little sticker on our boom, so we certainly appreciate all that they do.
Yeah, they were certainly strong in the ski market, and not to sort of overtout our sponsor, but I would say they have worked the absolute hardest to come into the sailing space in the U.S. And we see it in front of our eyes that they've certainly put in the effort to be the brand out there, that they work a lot of events, and Jenny Dodland, who's one of your natives out there, has been hustling so hard to make Hallie Hansen just a permanent fixture in American sailing. So that they put in the time to get to where they get to.
The product, and again, I'm a little prejudiced because I get free clothing from them, so I can't say too much, but it's
worth it.
Yeah.
No, it's good stuff. So if you're looking, nothing against everybody else, just take a hard look.
And we might as well plug in a PSA for Jenny, that the big thing now in terms of quality gear is that there's a big thing going on in the industry so for all the viewers, that the protective coating that used to be applied to all the gear is now banned in most places around the world because of its toxicity. And so if your stuff is feeling a little wet and leaky, give it a good tumble in the dry, wash it, dry it, and recoat it, and it'll be like brand new. So for anybody who out here is listening that says my stuff is leaking, give it some tear.
Yeah, we have a partner on site too, because I didn't know about it until, they told me face to face. So there will be a little bit of education, because I was like, oh, is it Helly's gear that's, declining in caliber? And I was like, she's like, no, it's actually the government. So it's really helpful, and they're doing a great job to supplement. So.
Well, they also are pretty innovative, because there's now a thing where there's a lot of sort of uninsulated pants and shirts. One of the things with ski racing, and this is where Holly Hansen, they've done this, I think, pretty well with ski sailing as well, is that we've always had thicker pants, insulated kinds of things, and we always want to be able to regulate underneath. So if it's a 5 below zero or it's a 25 below above zero, Fahrenheit, there's certainly different degrees of how you sweat. And with zippers, and they've come out with these, and they're relatively expensive, but they've come out with uninsulated equipment, jackets and things, so you can wear whatever else you want to wear underneath it as layers that they certainly will provide. And that wasn't true until about 4 years ago, when they came up with this, and now everybody sort of followed in the industry. But if you're on the skis all day, or if you're on a boat all day in the rain, those old days of wearing those jackets where all you do is sweat, like, you buy a cheap one. It's been pretty innovative, but at any rate.
It's also helpful on the Mac race when you've got those flies. You're hot, but you want to make sure you're covered. So.
Okay, last couple questions, and that is there entries are still available, or have we closed? Do you guys closed entries at this point?
Oh no, you can sign up till the day of, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
we know there's a lot of people who look at the weather and they go, yeah, like no reason not. So we gotta, we know that people, particularly small boat sailors, always wait till the last minute. So
yeah, but even if you're
welcome.
not sailing, I mean, maybe you want to join us in the judging panel on Friday night for the Mount Gay Rum Cocktail Contest. That's something we brought from the BVIs. So there's something for everyone at this event. If you can't sail, come to the party.
You have to explain the party. You can't get off without explaining what that is.
So in the BVIs, we started a cocktail contest at Bitter End Yacht Club. So we armed every boat with kind of a bottle of rum, and they had to come and present. There's this amazing setup at Bitter End, and they had to come present their cocktail that they have created. And so we actually have Mount Gay experts come in, and then we have the experts of Dave Reed and some fellow sailors locally, and they pick which one is the best. So we did it in St. Pete the first time we brought it up north, and it was fantastic. We were blown away, by the quality that we were able to enjoy. So we'll be doing the same thing. They can sign up. Everything's on the website, so they can enter, and we'll pick 5, and those 5 then have the opportunity to mix and taste and present to our panel and see who the winner is.
I'd be a bad guy to do anything because I don't drink, but Dave looks like an expert mixologist. He just does.
Well, we do mocktails too.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully you guys will both be in Detroit for the race.
Of course.
We'll be there. Yep.
Can't happen without us.
All right. Well, I really appreciate your time, and Dave, I've read a lot of stuff that you've written, and I really like reading the way you write. That's just
thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I appreciate that a bunch as a writer. And when you read good prose and to the point, and you sort of paint pictures, that's pretty cool. So Sarah, thank you for your time, and Dave, hopefully we'll see you guys the end of May, and we'll certainly say hello. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Want to thank David and Sarah for talking to us a little bit about One Design. And up next, we're going to have Wally Cross talk to us about Boat Bottom. I think you'll find it be interesting, and that'll be up in just a second. Hi, welcome back. We're going to spend some time with Wally Cross. Wally is going to let us look at a boat he's working on, and then sort of walk a virgin boat that he has never spent any time with, to give us some hints about what to look for at the bottom. And then specifically with a CNC 35 that he's working with a bunch of young guys on a brand new boat here to get raced this summer, what you really want to look for, and maybe spend some time. The interesting part of the comments is that you'd be really surprised at some of the things that are being talked about. But it's really, as Wally says, if you do 1 or 2% of the process, it might mean 3 or 4 seconds over a mile. And that's a lot. So up next is Wally, and we'll be back in a second. Wally, we're looking at a CNC 35, and we're going to do a kind of a walkthrough, because we had mentioned that we're going to get off of the Zoom and back on the hard a little bit and kind of talk some things. So let's go through what
you've been helping the folks that own this boat. You've been helping them a little bit with the premise. So go ahead and walk through it and tell us what you're looking for as an early season before maybe you start painting.
Yeah, you bet, Greg. This is my favorite time of the year because you can walk around and look at these boats out of the water on a beautiful day like today, and you can kind of see why some boats are faster than others. This boat on our right is Hotic. It's a very successful 120, and I can show you reasons why that boat goes through the water fast. And this is a CNC 35 owned by some young guys that are really they're just beginning and they really want to get faster. So I came down here last Saturday to look at their boat, and their plan was to just roll on some VC17 over the old VC17 and put it in the water and get going. And I said, guys, wait. So what we did, the first thing we did is I gave them my DA sander with 220 grit. I said, you've got to sand all this perfectly smooth because the prep is how smooth the bottom will get after you paint it. So they did that, and you can see this bottom is just really beautifully smooth right now, ready for the VC17 that they'll roll on after, and then lightly rub that down with a white Scotch-Brite, so it'll be smooth. But the other things they did, which is really cool, is they took out these through hulls that were sticking below the hull. If you come over here, he had 3 of them just like this that were sticking below the hull, and you can see, the water doesn't like that. It likes something flush. So they're grinding those out, and we're gonna make this flush. These are just gonna get filled with glass, and this one will get recessed.
All right, now I got to ask the obvious question. That indentation is 1/4 of an inch.
Oh yeah.
Are you telling me that 1/4 inch on a boat this size is going to matter?
Yeah, well, again, Greg, we talked about this a lot. It's a puzzle. All you're trying to do is put together all these little pieces that add up.
It's the 1%.
It's just tiny little things.
This is 1%,
right?
and that's 1%.
And the other thing it does is that when you do stuff like that, in your mind, no one has it better. So you're not only hoping to do well, you're expecting to do well.
Okay.
The other thing too with these boats is the keel separates a bit from the hull. So instead of just putting putty in there, he's grinding this all way back, and that'll get glass really well, so he doesn't have that problem every year. This is sort of a CNC 35 problem.
Why?
Just because of the age of the boat and the way they put the boat together right there, it just slowly separate. These things are 40 years old,
So let's ask this question. How often should we be checking, if you've got an older boat, 30 or more years older, how often should we be checking all of the nuts and bolts of the boat keels and all the those kind of things? How?
For sure, every year.
Okay.
And the boat should come out of the water every year. And quite frankly, I recommend the rigs coming down every year. Many boats, as you can see, leave their mast up all winter long. It's easy, right?
Right.
I think of the boat just moving the whole time with the mast up in these stands. I don't think it's that good. I think all that stuff should be checked every year. Just my opinion there.
Okay, one of the tips we're going to have to get to is maybe as we get a boat in the water is maybe show some folks how to check those bolts on their keel and know what to look for. I can open a hatch and see 6 bolts. I can open the hood of my car, it's about the same value, right? Because I just close it and call somebody because I have no clue.
Yeah, good point. So as we move back in the boat, and all this stuff is interesting to me, and one of the more important areas is the exit of the keel and the exit of the rudder.
Explain that.
Well, as the water comes off the keel, comes off the rudder, it wants to flow smoothly. And in the perfect world, it's very thin and sort of a sharp edge, but realistically, that's hard to achieve. So the next best is to have sort of a square, sharp edge so the water comes off evenly on both sides. But the problem is, Greg, if it's too wide, it's a little bit like driving behind a semi on the freeway, semi-truck on the freeway, where it kind of pulls you along, and that's what happens with the water. It kind of goes the opposite way. So there's techniques to do by angling that back edge that are nice. So when I meet with these guys next Saturday, that's one of my focuses, is to show these guys how to make their trailing edges a little bit more efficient.
Dumb question. Hydrology is a part of boat design, certainly. You'll hear guys online, they'll say, well, the rudder's too small for this particular boat, and here's why, and we change it out to something. If you're a boat designer of any note, don't you know that there's things wrong with the boat that people are going to pick at, or do you really believe that you're talking about the rudder being a certain way or the keel being a certain way? Don't they do the hydrology before they actually build a boat?
Well, the designers come up with what they call velocity prediction programs for the design of the boat, the hull, the keel, and the rudder. And they're making the assumptions that all that is put together as nice as possible. But every boat's a little bit different.
Okay.
And it's these little things that make an average boat a very, very good boat. So as we move back, Greg, you can see just more simple things. You can see the propeller there and this zinc right here, and that keeps the propeller from oxidizing. But this should be tapered with some Bondo and make that a little bit smoother flow right there. All this stuff should be recessed and polished just to keep the water flowing easy.
Okay, let me ask you a really dumb question. Oxidation happens in salt water. Doesn't happen in fresh water.
Yeah, right. And what we have here is electrolysis. So you get, some docks with wires in the water and so forth, and it's electricity in the water that creates electrolysis. The zinc counteracts that on brass fittings like a prop.
So we should all have those.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Some people have a little zinc fish they'll put in the water connected to a wire, and they'll attach it to the shrouds. That can do the same thing.
Are we looking at this for racing? Does this matter on cruising boats?
For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
When somebody says to me that they're useless because obviously freshwater versus saltwater, what if I got this extra thing on my boat? But you're explaining it, so that makes sense.
No, it would be worthwhile. Greg, if we move back even further, other things that I look at too is the distance between the rudder and the hull. The closer you get this, the less drag there is between the hull and the rudder, and also less weeds can catch in there, because later in the summertime weeds become a problem. And then we talked about this trailing edge. So this boat with a lot of little small things, good bottom paint, raising the rudder bit, fairing off the prop, getting the keel and the rudder exit the way I like it, it's just going to be a better boat.
In terms of if they do all the things you're suggesting, over a mile, how much faster are you?
Let's just say they just do this,
Right.
and not do everything else I'm suggesting from
Right,
the water
just the
level
bottom.
up. Just the bottom. I'm just going to throw out a number.
Sure.
There'll be 3 seconds, 4
Okay.
seconds, 5 seconds, a mile faster. Probably
Okay, so
3 seconds.
But this goes back to system sailing in that you're talking about doing 12 things that all add up to 12% or 15%. This is a 1% or a 2%
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely. I wrote this article called "Gain 6 Seconds and Win," and that wasn't meant to be gain 6 seconds in the perf room and you'll win. No, that was meant to be gain 6 seconds by working on the boat bottom, making the interior lighter, more efficient, the rig smoother, less windage. All this stuff adds up. You'll gain 6 seconds, and you'll have better results.
Well, what I want to do really quick, there's a boat real clear to what we're looking at, and you've worked with that boat. So here's a brand new boat. So you're going to walk this for the first time. So give us an insight with your knowledge about what we're looking for if you're going to walk this for the first time.
I'd be glad to, Greg. So I walk up to the boat, and first area I look for is always the first third of the bow, because that's the most important part of the underbody, making sure that's fair, smooth, and so forth. And I always question why there's through hulls this far forward. But when I see a through hull like that that's protruding out in the first third of the boat, that's a red flag. And then I'll walk to the other side of the boat, Greg, and look at this. It's another one that's protruding out there. I mean, that's not fast. That adds a fair amount of drag, particularly in that front third, because you're trying to create a boundary layer for the rest of the boat. But the good thing is you can tell people are working on this boat. They're sanding it, they're getting it as fair as possible. As I move back, you can see that the lead is only right on the very, very bottom there. That's interesting. But more through hulls. And can you see the underbody right here? How
Yep.
it kind of looks rough, and it looks like some rust there too. So there must be steel somewhere.
Do you have a preference, Wally, between stands and cradles?
Cradles are the best.
Because they're better supported?
It's to support the whole boat. And again, with these rigs up, these boats do move a little bit over the wintertime, and they're putting a lot of force on just a small area here.
Yeah.
So yeah, cradle's preferred.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, this boat can use a fair amount of work. Here's a classic case of the rudder. The prop just getting corroded through electrolysis. And you can tell this zinc is quite old. That should be replaced. That has been eaten up pretty well. When they get small, they should be replaced. And they're cheap. You could just put a new one on for $20.
You should walk your boat as part of the lesson, I guess.
It
Right?
is a lesson.
Okay.
This is, like I said, the best time of the year to see why some boats sail fast and why some boats aren't as fast.
Okay, well, with Wally Cross here at Bayview, have some fun here. We'll be hopefully on the top of the boat looking down, looking at the inside stuff next week.
That'd be great. Thanks, Greg.
Just want to take a couple seconds to thank Wally for spending some time pointing out that you better pay attention to those boat bottoms as we get ready to put boats in the water here in the spring of 2024. Up next, we're going to talk about the Crescent Sail Yacht Club's race, June 15th and 16th. We'll be back with that in just a second.
Welcome back. We're talking with Uli Golovetsa and Rob Wood, who are members of Crescent Sail Yacht Club. Rob is the Vice Commodore of Crescent. And we're talking all things today about One Design. And Crescent's One Design this summer coming up. It's the first time in a while for a One Design race. Going to happen on June 15th and 16th. And I guess I'll start, Uli, we'll start with you. Talk a little bit about the race and the uniqueness of One Design.
Yeah, so I am the chairman of the Crescent One Design Regatta, happening on 15th to 16th of June. And we are really motivated to make this a really, really fun event. I mean, Crescent is just a down-to-earth, fun sailing club. We have a lot of dinghy sailing in the club as well. And so the idea was to make a beautiful regatta with low cost and lots of fun, and get our club members, but foremost also people from outside the club to us. The bigger, the better. And we have a bunch of interesting One Design classes coming to this event. So will be a nice trend we're starting off, and we hope we can do this for multiple years, and everybody will love coming back in the years to follow.
We're talking to Rob Wood also on the phone, but we're getting a chance to look at his profile in a stationary picture. Camera's not working today, but Rob, I was not aware of this, Rob. There were more than 200 fleets sailing One Design in the United States. That shocked me when I heard that.
Yeah, that's a big number. Yeah, we've got something like 14 at Crescent alone, but I think it's great. I think racing got more complicated with ratings and everything. I think this is sort of a back to the basics, pure One Design. As we look around Crescent, we've got everything from F-18s to Cal 25s, Vipers, J-70s, non-suds, Stars, Lightnings, Pistols. And so fins, lasers, we have, sort of a celebration of One Design sailing. So this will be a regatta with no ratings, pure One Design, and it's going to be a lot of fun. The beach, we've got beach boats, and so that's kind of unique about our club. But it's really orchestrated around a family One Design event. So, and trying to keep the cost down and the fun high, bonfire, keg of beer, great racing, and the camaraderie that you get with these One Design fleets. So we're really looking forward to it.
You're one of the better non-such sailors in the area, certainly in Lake St. Clair, Lake Huron. You're going to be on Star. There's a little more work on that Star than on that non-such.
Yeah, I got the opportunity to sail with my son, and he wants to do the Star with me. Frankly, the non-such have such a big group now that I'm trying to promote both fleets. The Stars, we need a few more boats out there, so he wanted to sail the Star with me, and I got to take him up on that. The non-such will probably have 9 boats, I would imagine, or 10. There's 13 on the lake now, so they're really strong and some great sailors in that. So they're pretty good. The Star fleet, we're still trying to build. We've got 5 right now. We hope to get another 5 from Gull Lake and Cleveland and Chicago. Hopefully they'll come in. Yeah, I think no matter what you're sailing, it's going to be fun. But I'm looking forward to sailing with my son. I think that's going to be the fun for me.
Lee, the rules of, and correct me if I'm wrong, the rules of One Design is you kind of throw out the handicaps and you race boat against boat from the same specifications. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, there are no excuses that somebody bought a spinnaker from a certain sailmaker or had a crazy expensive bottom job, although it's not always completely true. But it's the same boat, and whoever is first is first. There's no excuses unless you break a rule, but otherwise, right. No excuses.
So the only real handicap is between your ears.
That's right.
Okay. Tell us a little about the cost and what's the entry fees, and then a little bit more about how late they can enter into the race.
So the entrance fee is $85, and there is a discounted dinner for skippers and their teams for $15 for Saturday night. but we already have a lot of beer included in the starting fee. And we'll have a bonfire on Friday night when people are rigging. And once they're done, they can come over and listen to guitar music. And on Saturday, Sunday, we both times have breakfast. And Saturday night, we will have live music and a really good dinner. And another special thing we have at Crescent is the blessing of the fleet. We'll do that on Sunday morning as well. So for the season, we have a pastor coming in, and he will bless the fleet so that everybody's safe out there and racing.
Hey, Rob, can you talk briefly about the courses that will be available for this race?
Yeah, we're planning right now to run 2 courses. Matt Bounds will be running one, and Champ Glover will be running the other. These will be Windward Lures. And if need be, we'll set up a 3rd course, but we'll see how the boats are doing. I think we're up to 55 boats right now. But it's going to be real interesting. You're going to have F-18s on the course with non-such 30s and Vipers and Stars. So it's going to be a lot of fun out there. But 2 courses right now, they'll be straight off of Crescent, and we'll have the Markset bots we're using. So I think that should suffice, but we'll see how that goes.
Uli, do you see what numbers what are you looking for? Are you looking for more than 100 boats? Or at this point you got 55 and you're still a good, couple of months away?
I mean, of course, we take the more the merrier, and we can handle it. We have a big team of volunteers. Our target initially was 80 boats, but we want anybody who wants to come and play. We have the Lightning Fleet doing the districts actually also throughout this event. So they put a major focus on it and push the event. So we'll see a lot of Lightnings. And our Rockstar Fleet of the Cal 25, they already signed up with 11 boats. I mean, so that's pretty awesome. Will be a really good, fun event.
What constitutes, how many boats does it take to make a one design fleet to be able to race in your group?
We are targeting 5 boats.
Okay, that makes sense. So anything less than that, can you still race, or you just not, or do you have to actually be a boat for us?
We want promote sailing, and just talk to us, talk to me or Rob, or anybody who is up on the roster. In the notice of race, you see some email addresses and phone numbers.
Okay. I always find it interesting when I interview folks about races and regattas. We just got through talking with Dave Reed, who is the Sailing World's editor, and they're putting on the Hallie Hansen race at down at Bayview on May 31st. And even in their press releases, there's always this conversation about the entertainment and the libations at the end of the race. When you talk about golf or almost any other sport, participatory sport, nobody mentions the after party, and they always do with sailing. And I always think that's terrific, because obviously it is certainly self-promoting from its own standpoint. So I think that's part of the gang. So you're obviously anticipating a large party for this thing.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's just perfect. It's not about just libations per se. It's also about standing together, talking about what you did on the race course, what your plans are, and just growing the passion for the One Design fleet. And
Rob,
help there.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, definitely that helps to put a nice program around the regatta.
Rob, I was going to ask a very specific sort of pointed question. Crescent in the last couple of years, I should say for the sake of argument that I'm also a member at Crescent, so I'm a little bit biased, but you guys have really targeted Crescent for national and larger races over the last 3 to 4 years than maybe it did the previous years. Was that on purpose?
Yeah, I think the club is just better set up now. We've been working on the clubhouse. We've been working on the grounds. We've been getting it in better position. I think we've always been, good at the sailing part. Just the facility part, has been a little lacking. So I think that's been the goal. We've been improving the facilities so we can accommodate this. Taking better care of the beach. To me, it just creates a nicer family atmosphere, and that's what we're all about. And, family One Design sailing is really Crescent in a nutshell. And I think, now we want to show the world what we do. And the laser event was so much fun. Every inch of lawn was covered. The beach was covered. I mean, it was really spectacular having 180 boats sailing in and out of the club. That was really a cool event, and we proved we can handle it. So, yeah, I just think now that the facility's in better shape and the grounds are in better shape, I just think we can, bring it on. We can handle it at this point. And with different, we got different ways to launch boats. We can handle, a larger regatta like that. So, yeah, and to utilize the beach is really important. I mean, with the catamarans, lasers, fins, that opens it up another avenue. Most of the lasers launch from the beach at the laser event. They did not use the launch ramp so much. So that just proved that, yeah, that was great. So yeah, we've been just working on the facility, and I think that's really paid off.
I asked the question because as I talk regionally to different folks in Lake Michigan or Lake Erie, Crescent's name seems to be coming up in more conversations that I've had, especially at the sort of the higher level races. Not that they weren't, important before, but they seem to get a little more publicity. If I talk to somebody from another area, if I talk to somebody outside the area, outside the Great Lakes, they seem to get it. So I think it has a value, at least it seems to be in the conversations I'm having, it seems to have a value where it's sort of reputation. And in being a sail only club, and again, I'm a bit prejudiced being a member, but it's kind of cool when I'm talking to somebody of note and they know Crescent. That's kind of a cool feeling, being a member and part of that same premise.
Yeah, I'm really excited, and I'm proud of it. I think that we have such a nice group down there, and there's so many women involved, there's kids involved. It's really cool. I love the vibe of the club. It's not fancy, but it's clean and efficient. It does a nice job. We have a lot of younger members coming in with fresh energy and great sailors coming in all these classes. So this is a great opportunity to sort of celebrate your fleet, promote the Lightning class, promote the Stars, promote, your One Design fleet, and meet people from all over the region here. So I don't know. I'm excited about it. I think the facility's ready. I think we can put on a Class A event. Entertainment is part of it, though. We want to be off the water party. You're going to meet a lot of new friends. I think that's the takeaway when you're pulling out of the gate Sunday night. I want you to have met a bunch of new people, a bunch of fun people from the various classes, and it gets you revved up for the whole season.
Last question, and I want to kind of back out of the way here. Uli, you can see behind me, you can see the artwork that was put together for the poster. That's almost, it's really cool. And we're going to, at the beginning of the show, you obviously saw the poster you guys have to register, but maybe talk a little bit about this and who put it together. And I want to get a copy of that, put it on my wall somewhere.
Yeah, so one of our club members, who is actually a star sailor and professional designer, he made this logo for the event. And I'm very passionate about it because it's a really cool logo, and it's part of just the signature that we are really taking this regatta serious. This should be a signature event. And so we kicked it off with this beautiful logo done by George Macon, a star sailor.
Okay, so here's the question. What silhouettes are in that poster? Are those star boats?
These are star boats. We left the star out, but just because it's a One Design regatta for many classes, but it's star boats.
I guess if you're doing the poster, you get to choose which boats go in the picture, right?
Well, I'm an F18 sailor, so it would be a different boat on there if I had to. No, I love this. I love this logo.
No, it's wonderful. If I were to do the logo, I'd have to have a submarine in it because that's the way my boat sails, like a submarine. So it's all relative to the guy designing the poster. I get that part.
That wouldn't help too much with registration if we would put a submarine.
No, I think I'm being a little facetious. I get that.
That's okay. So
let me get back to the dates. June 15th and 16th. Registration is all the way up to what date?
To the 20th of May.
20th of May, you cut off registrations. If you haven't been to Lake St. Clair, or you certainly haven't been to Crescent, that's something you want to take the time to do. And either Rob or Uli, am I missing anything on the race?
No, I think you got it. Sunday is Father's Day, and we are going to celebrate that down at Crescent and honor it with the blessing of the fleet, which is our tradition on Father's Day. So we're going to kind of embrace it. We're going to do it with about 350 people, though, which will be a lot of fun.
Okay. Well, best of luck. We hope you get to your 80 and maybe even get to 100 boats. In a year where there's an America's Cup and an Olympics it certainly is a spotlight on the sport we all love. So maybe that's part of that participation. Everybody's kind of getting out and enjoying it. So guys, thanks very much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you so much for promoting our regatta and let us share our passion about it.
Just want to say thank you to all of our guests today, and hopefully you learned a little bit about One Design. Again, we talked about 200 fleets. It's just an amazing number when you start thinking about all the boats that are built. So we hopefully you'll spend some time looking at One Design Racing this summer. There's still plenty of time to sign up, and we hope you enjoyed the show. So for all the guys in back, next week we'll be back with another conversation and hopefully some live sailing if that's at all possible. So pray for Mother Nature to turn warm. We'll see you next week.